Now, there's almost not enough time in the rest of the show for me to talk to Garland Nixon because I really don't know where to start. Do I start with Biden or do I start with Trump? Do I start with RFK Jr.? I don't know. Let's hear what he has to say. Garland Nixon, the radio talk show host and supreme political analyst, one of our favorites here on MOATS. Welcome. Let's start with Joe Biden, can we? The New York Post, which broke the story of Hunter Biden's laptop and lost its Twitter account for the privilege, is now banned from attending Joe Biden's presidential events. And the reason's not hard to find because they are, again, leading the pack, although the rest of the pack doesn't seem yet to be following, exposing more and more and more malfeasance and maybe even high crimes of the Biden family. What say you?
I think the Biden team is they're fairly wise to try to shut the mouths of those who are exposing their current legal woes. I think the biggest case against Joe Biden right now is in Congress. Apparently, there are a number of members of Congress who are arguing that they have a FBI whistleblower that has the FBI whistleblower is claiming that the FBI has evidence that Joe Biden was involved in some kind of a bribery scheme, that he actually received money from some foreign entity while he was vice president of the United States. That's part of the allegation. The other part of the allegation is that the FBI has had this evidence for some time and has not acted on it, which of course would point to the FBI being involved in a cover-up. Additionally, another major issue is the connection between the Biden administration and actual election interference in the 2020 election. There are allegations that have been made by a former CIA assistant director that one Anthony Blinken was the driving force behind a letter that said 51 former intelligence officials believed that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation, admittedly with no evidence whatsoever. So I think the Biden team is probably hiding from the New York Post, but they're going to have to do a whole lot of hiding for a long time because it looks like the skeletons are making their way out of the Biden closet.
Robert Kennedy has been talking a lot, 24/7 because he's running for president. And some of the things that he is saying are pushing the envelope. If someone told you Garland Nixon said them or that I said them, you might not be surprised. But that a Kennedy said them and a man running for president said them is pushing the boundaries very considerably. He has, and I don't have time to list them all, but he has accused the CIA of being involved in the murder of his uncle, President Jack Kennedy, his father, Senator Robert Kennedy. He has outed, it's the first time I've seen this number, a $5 billion spend back in 2014 to overthrow the government in Ukraine and then to hand-pick a stooge government by Victoria Nuland and other functionaries of Barack Obama and Joe Biden's administration. He goes from one issue to another, making the most pungent accusations. I think killing any reluctance on the part of people like you and me to get behind his bid. I mean, whatever else you say about him, he's a Force 9 Gale exposing these crimes. And we should get behind him, shouldn't we?
Well, I think he's a very interesting candidate, and, I'm looking into supporting him at this time. One of the things that I think that's interesting about the things that that RFK Jr. has said is that for the most part, these things are they're very easily researched and very easily verified. He came out with this $5 billion number, but those of us who have been researching this know that the neocons literally bragged about that years ago about spending the $5 billion. So the interesting thing about the dynamics of politics in the United States today is that RFK Jr. comes out and says things that are, as they call OSINT, open source intelligence, things that we can all find out, things that many of us in the alternative media have been reporting on for years, and we all know, but the mainstream media won't touch it. And he comes out and says these things. It's very, very refreshing to hear this. But it's a sad state of affairs when a person who comes out and speaks the obvious is some kind of an outlier. And and obviously, as you probably know, he has been ignored a great deal by the mainstream media here for obvious reasons.
Yeah, although it'll not be possible, a guy with the name recognition that he has cannot be silenced forever, but we'll keep abreast of that. Let's talk about another man. Unexpectedly, now, just like Kennedy, shining a very powerful light on things that the powerful don't want us to see. I refer to Tucker Carlson, who seems to have broken the mold of American television broadcast journalism. He was bound by golden handcuffs to the tune of $25 million not to say another thing on any other platform until his contract was up. In other words, Mr. Murdoch was honoring his contract and going to pay him $25 million, but he must keep silent. He has shredded that and taken a new platform with Elon Musk on Twitter. Now, you and I have had many issues with Elon Musk, but this is a pretty powerful combination, isn't it? Tucker Carlson and Elon Musk.
It's actually a very powerful combination, and I think this will increase the flow of viewers away from mainstream media towards alternative media. It's going to benefit those of us in alternative media who push back against the mainstream lies and try to put forward stories that we can substantiate. I think what's going to happen here, and if you already look at Fox News is losing viewers like crazy. Whatever, I've been saying for a while that whatever platform that he moved to would grow exponentially. And I think it's going to be really good for Twitter. Personally, I'm glad he chose Twitter because Elon Musk seems considerably less inclined to support, the kind of censorship that we've seen on other platforms. So I think it's perfect for him. I think it's good for all of us. We can watch him, and we can, I also want to see what happens with Tucker Carlson now that the restraints are taken off him. Was what he was doing on Fox as far as he will go, or will he take it to another level and just let go? I have a feeling that it will be the latter. I'm looking forward to the new iteration of Tucker Carlson.
Now, finally, Garland, Donald Trump was in court. I must say this case crept up on me. I hadn't been following. I was still thinking about his last case. All I knew was that he said he had no idea who this woman accuser even was. And yet the jury, whilst clearing him of the far more serious charge of rape, nonetheless found him culpable, not guilty because it's a civil case, but culpable for a sexual assault, which was later explained as forcible and unwanted sexual touching, and fined Donald Trump $5 million. What can you tell us about that case?
A couple of things that are interesting in this case. Number one, this is the second time that the plaintiff, E.G., Carol has sued Donald Trump. She sued him earlier, and that got hung up in court because there was some discussion as to, at the time, she was making claims against him when he was in office, and it was never cleared up in court as to whether she could sue him while he was acting as a public service in his official capacity. In 2020, here's what's interesting. In 2022, the New York State Legislature passed a law granting a one-year window so that victims of former sexual assault cases could bring forth their assertions to court. It is my understanding in evaluating this that that's the only reason she could move forward with this case. And one could possibly infer from that specifically they passed that law so that she could move forward. I'm not saying that's why, but I'm saying that someone could certainly infer from looking at that law in New York, that particularly the state that it's in, that they did that so that she could bring these charges. So he's found guilty of, not guilty, but it's found that it's more likely than not that he was guilty of, that he committed battery and defamation. Keep in mind, for those of you who don't know U.S. law, in a criminal case, the standard of proof for a finding of conviction in the U.S. is beyond a reasonable doubt to a moral certainty. In a civil case such as this, it's simply a preponderance of the evidence, meaning that it's more likely than not that it happened. It's 51% versus 49% that it happened. So it's not exactly a finding of guilt. It's basically like you won an argument, people listened to it and said, I think it's more likely that this person is right than wrong. So at this point, Donald Trump can appeal. In civil cases, most of the time, the appeal will center around some kind of a legal error. So the likelihood of winning some kind of an appeal is not strong. He could also appeal the number and say that was too high for a number of reasons, but looks like this thing is it's kind of dying out.
Will it impact Trump's potential run for the presidency?
I don't believe it will at all for a number of reasons, not the least of which being it was brought in New York State. It was brought in a jurisdiction that's openly hostile towards Donald Trump. So people support Donald Trump will certainly take that fact into account. It will also be seen as, and forgive me if I'm freezing up here, I think it will be seen as a political move against Donald Trump. It's so far out where there are a lot of things that are going to happen. So I really don't think it will affect those who would either vote for Donald Trump or, in the case of Joe Biden, what he has to be concerned with is people in his party who don't show up to the polls for a variety of other reasons that we don't have enough time to talk about today.
We don't. Thanks very much, Garland. Despite the electronic interference, we did get the picture. Thanks for joining us on the mother of all talk shows.